Larry Livingston, Chair of the HMA. Joining us today is we're joined by Katherine Englander, Human Resources Partners for Business. Katherine is the founder of HRP4B, a consulting company previously contracted by the HMA, as well as a recently joined associate HMA member. Among many other impressive achievements and titles, Katherine is a certified life coach, a part-time teacher for over 13 years, and a member of the Human Resources Professional Association. Today, Katherine will be presenting a webinar about leadership in difficult times, which we look forward to learning a great deal from. Bear in mind, this is being recorded. Please mute your mics and there will be time for questions at the end of this discussion. And plus, on top of that, you can send through the chat box. Without further ado, I'll let Katherine take the lead from here. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry. And thanks, everybody, for joining us this morning. Yesterday, I was on a webinar with a group of lawyers because there was new legislation passed in Ontario. It was Bill 27, and it was a real sleeper of a Zoom call. So I'm hoping you don't fall asleep during mine. It will be colorful and fun and not quite as long as theirs was either. But thank you for the introduction, Larry, much appreciated. So I'm going to jump right into it. So anytime during our call this morning, please feel free to put questions or comments into the chat box. I prefer if you are engaged in this webinar because you will learn more if you are engaged. As Larry said, I've been teaching at Fanshawe for over 13 years now, and both in person and through Zoom. And you'll get a lot more if you are engaged. So I will be asking you questions. So you know what's going on right now is an employees' labor market. Because there are more companies looking for employees than there are employees looking for work. We call this the Great Resignation, the Great Turnover Tsunami, or the Big Quit too. Because whatever you call it, it's a movement driven by a massive shift in employee needs, and it's picking up momentum as the pandemic impact lessens. As companies are opening up, they're finding they more and more, they don't have the people available. And I'm sure you're fully aware of that. More concerning is that in a recent survey, 36% of respondents who've quit their jobs in the last 6 months did so without a new job lined up. And we know that some of them quit because they didn't want to be vaccinated or they don't want to work in a certain industry due to risk. The numbers are staggering. And in that survey conducted by McKinsey & Company, 53% of employers across several countries, including Canada, are experiencing turnover at an all-time high. So today we're going to talk about that current reality and how excellence in leadership can help mitigate that concern. So according to McKinsey & Company, which is a company that HR professionals follow, they gather a lot of data on employees and the workforce. So this survey was taken September 2021. 40% of employees plan to leave their employment in the next 3 to 6 months. So the question is, what is your organization going to do to create a place where people want to stay and perform at their best? So right off the top, are you sheltering toxic leaders? Do you have the right people in the right places, especially managers? How strong was your culture before this pandemic? Is your work environment transactional? Are your benefits aligned with what your employees want? Do your employees have career paths and employment or development opportunities? And are you building a sense of community? Because you're probably fully aware that the workforce today looks at things quite differently than the workforce of the past. So here we have motivation and recognition. Employees want what they want and what, as they say, what they're hungry for. And not getting recognition is one of the top reasons why employees leave their organization. And I hear this all the time. All they want is some gratitude. Lack of recognition leads to employees leaving their current employer and looking for a new place. Receiving a paycheck isn't enough. Employees feel they are not valued, not recognized, and poor management, which we'll be talking about in detail today. And according to Forbes magazine, tired of the stress of the pandemic and annoyed by irritating bosses, frustrated by low wages and lack of future growth, workers have decided that they'd rather quit, even though they don't have that new job. So I'm going to get you to put in the chat box what you think about this leader. And you can message it to me privately if you don't want others to see. So what I'd like you to put in there is if you feel, if this is a leader that you respect or that you feel is a good leader. And I'm going to wait for you to respond something in the chat box. I'm going to give you a few minutes to just chat either directly to me or open to everyone if you want. And while I'm waiting for you to chat, I find that people are very divided on this leader, but everybody has an opinion. And so the question is, does this leader have qualities which make him a strong and respected leader? Now, nobody has put anything in the chat yet. And as I say, you can send it directly to me. I'm going to wait a couple of minutes for somebody to engage with me in responding. Ah, good. People are answering. Thank you. Great. Right. Right. Excellent. That's right. Well, that's right from my perspective, I don't want you. Thanks, Larry. Interesting. And, because I teach leadership in a small form, but in a series of workshops, this is a slide I often use, and I get a very divided opinion from a lot of people. Some feel he was a strong leader. Right. I don't know enough about him as a politician, but he was successful in business. But in actuality, I think he grew up with money and he leveraged a lot. In any case, most individuals feel he's not a respected leader. And when we think about ability to motivate people, but his leadership was toxic. Thank you, Jennifer. Interesting, because we all have an opinion of this leader. And why I use this slide is because I want you to think about leadership, the type of leader that you are, and that leadership matters. He has qualities that make him a leader in his own style. That's right. Some people do swear he is a great leader. Thank you very much, everybody. There will be some more opportunities to engage with me as we go through the content. So the big question, does leadership matter? And honestly, I think it's 40% of people leave a company because of poor leadership. And the big saying, people don't leave leaders they love. So if you're thinking about retention, you want to be that leader, right? You want to be the leader that nobody wants to leave. So there are other factors that encourage people to leave companies, but I personally can't stress enough that people leave leaders, not companies. If your leadership is not providing support, team building, empathy, vulnerability, empowerment, respect, honesty, and consistency, and we're going to talk about those in detail, your workers might be looking elsewhere to find a more welcoming place to work. If your leaders aren't holding people accountable, other employees are frustrated by this, right? If you're at work and you're coming in early every day and you're doing your job, and Susie beside you comes in late every day and isn't doing her job, that is annoying to you. So as leaders, we must hold people accountable. And again, when I teach leadership, that's not one of the number one things that leaders in my classroom tell me. That's the challenge. I don't have time to hold people accountable. I don't know how to hold them accountable. So we will talk about that. A human resources department or a company like ours can help teach you how to hold people accountable, but I'm going to give you some pointers today. And as I said before, the main reason people leave companies often is the leader. And back to employee retention. If you're trying to retain people, you've got to have good leadership. Having open and honest one-to-one understand, sorry about mental health, but we're coming up to that. And leadership is not about you so much as it's about the people you're leading. And we think leadership is about us, but we have to think of it from the perspective of the people who we are leading. Right, Larry, leadership instills good employee loyalty. Right on, that's right, because people don't want to leave a good leader. So in order to be a strong leader, something really important is taking care of yourself. Your employees see and feel your emotions before you do quite often. Sometimes we don't realize we're stressed until somebody says, hey, what's up with you? For a true example here, my team often tells me when I'm stressed, we'll be in a staff meeting and they'll say, Katherine, what's going on? Because you seem really stressed. And I'll be thinking, oh man, they can see my stress. And I'll say, I've just had a busier than usual week. I'm not caught up. I don't like being behind. I've got this coming up and that coming up and I don't have time. And then of course they say to me, well, you need to delegate more. But some things as a leader, we don't want to delegate. But my team sees and feels my stress before I do. And I want everybody to be very highly aware of that. It's a problem if your team sees your stress before you. So self-care is a recent buzzword, right? It's a buzzword of the last 5 to 10 years. Everybody's talking about self-care. But taking the time to take care of yourself and checking in with yourself to see how you feel is really important. So as my team says to me, Katherine, you seem to be stressed. Sometimes I might think, okay, what is it that's bothering me? Maybe I don't even know. So I need to stop and think, what is bothering me? Okay, I had a problem with a client. They didn't want to do what I felt was the right thing. And so it's bothering me. And if something's bothering you as a leader, you should figure that out before your employees or your coworkers figure it out. Stop and think. What's bothering me and what can I do about it? If there's anything you can do about it, you should do something about it and address that. If it's something you can't do something about, such as this pandemic, then we just need to find ways to move forward and cope. And taking care of ourselves includes these things on the list I've got here. Promoting work-life balance in your workplace is essential. Taking breaks, walking on breaks, drinking more water, whatever it is that provides self-care for you and your team. And with the passing of Bill 27 yesterday, the legislation dictates mandatory disconnecting from work. Now, we aren't going to talk about that in detail today, but that's what is in the new legislation that was passed yesterday. So getting back to bosses that we remember, I bet that most of you remember your favorite boss or your least favorite boss, right? If you've ever worked for somebody else, and perhaps some of you haven't, you might be self-employed your entire life. But when you think about a boss that you've had, what made that person special? So what I want you to do is put that one word in the chat box. You can put the person's name if you want. So you could say Mary, and she opened a career door for me or something in the chat box right now. I'll wait for you. And while I wait for you, I'm going to talk about one of my favorite bosses who some of you might know. So I worked at Conestoga College I would say probably 12, 15 years ago on a contract in doing career development. I was a career development facilitator at Conestoga College in Stratford and Waterloo several years ago. And my boss there was Kim Moore, who some of you might know. And Kim is one of my favorite bosses because she was so professional. She was younger than me, but she was very professional and she was very fair and she encouraged everyone to do their best. Additionally, When she realized somebody on the team wasn't pulling their share, she would meet with that individual and try to support them. Kim left Conestoga College a few years back, and she actually came and worked for me for about a year, but she's moved on to another role now. So good, the chat box is filling up, so I want to hear what we've got in there. So hands off, get the job done your way. That's right, Brian. That's right, because nobody wants to be micromanaged. Good one. And then we've got integrity and consistent decision-making. Again, so important, consistent in decision-making. Anybody else want to put something in the chat box about their favorite boss or somebody that they want to highlight? Was on? Oh, had your back in every decision that you made. Yep, that makes a big difference too. Does the small tasks every day and expects high performance. Right. That's a good one, Matthew, because we want people to have great expectations for us because then we want to strive to meet them. Empathetic and supportive. Yep. Anybody else before I move on? Treats us like business partners versus just an employee. That's right. Right. Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Casual and kind. They're in an emergency, but they're for regular days. Excellent. Thanks. Okay. I'm going to address this slide first and keep putting them in there if you want to. So the bosses that we remember, right, provided us a safe place to grow, opened career doors, defended us, recognized and rewarded us. People love gratitude. They're waiting for you to say, I value you. Good job. Developed us as leaders, inspired us to stretch higher, led by example, told us our work mattered, forgave us when we made a mistake. So workplace culture starts at the top, which means that if you're the leader in a company, you are setting the culture. If you aren't treating people well, why should anybody who reports to you treat anyone well, including customers? Everyone wants to work somewhere with good workplace culture, and it's created in many ways, including making employees feel valued, transparency of information, supportive environment, honesty, again, holding employees accountable, and focusing on employee wellness. My company has a number of workshops that we deliver, similar to this one, but we have a really good one on building workplace culture. Again, people don't leave bad jobs, they leave bad bosses, and it's the people at the top who set the workplace culture. When an organization has positive and transparent, respectful culture, they are more likely to attract and retain engaged workers. Word gets out, you want to work for so-and-so because the culture at that company is so great. And when an organization has poor work culture, that gets out too. I could mention some names, but I won't do that. But we all know companies that have set up shop and then closed 2 or 3 years later. Then they set up shop somewhere else, then they close again. Is that a place we want to work? Not really. That's not establishing good culture. Okay. So mental health, another really important thing, and I'm surprised that the provincial or federal government haven't passed legislation for employers on mental health. That was my New Year's prediction a couple of years ago, was that there would be legislation passed addressing mental health in the workplace. And again, employers often say to me, this is a really hard topic to address. What do we say? So we've got a little bit on here, but I'm going to give you some pointers. So when I'm teaching employers how to address things which might be mental health issues, or generally a conversation with an employee, I use 2 phrases. These 2 phrases don't apply to every situation. The phrases are lead with concern and use a fact-based conversation. Now, leading with concern, my example for that is, I'm concerned about you, Susie, because you've been a few minutes late every day this week. That's the fact-based part of the sentence. The beginning is, I'm concerned about you. And that will help the employee open up to you. As a leader, that's what you want the person to do. You want to build that relationship and continue to build it by showing that you actually care. So again, leading with concern using a fact-based conversation. I'm concerned about you, Mary. You haven't been yourself lately. You seem to be very distracted at work, and I noticed that you're not meeting your deadlines. Can we talk about that? What's going on? Empathy, right, Larry? Exactly. That's right. Empathy makes a huge difference if an employer shows it. And 7 in 10 employees value meaningful work. And I threw this in here because sometimes employees don't see the big picture. I worked at a cabinet. We were doing HR consulting for a cabinet building company, and one of the gentlemen made the front doors of the cabinets. And he said to me, like, I make these doors, but I never see the kitchens. I never know. So I went to management and I said, this gentleman wants to see the bigger picture. How can we make that happen? So they did some videos and they did some other things. And they also, before the pandemic, could go with their employees to see the finished product, which made a big difference to this gentleman. People want to know, what's the point of what I'm doing? Is it all worth it? In fact, one of the top reasons driven, ambitious, and hardworking employees, again, leave jobs is because they don't feel connected. They don't understand. So again, explain the big picture to employees, even if they don't ask you. Show them the value in the work that they're doing. So elevating employees, nurturing and developing talent. Employees will stay at your company longer, attain job satisfaction, and perform at their highest level if you do these things here. Be clear about your expectations, set performance standards, offer development opportunities, open communication, and offer competitive and financial benefits. Post job vacancies internally. What a big difference that makes to employees when they see an internal vacancy. Not necessarily are they going to qualify, but you are being transparent in showing a vacancy in your workplace. Makes a huge difference. And they might know somebody who can apply. Some companies use referral programs also. Refer a friend and you get some kind of a bonus. Understand your employees' goals and don't ditch the one-size-fits-all plan. Encourage the use of individualized training plans for people or career paths. Develop your managers into coaches to support employees' developmental needs. And make training programs and resources widely available. People want opportunities to grow, especially younger people. Yes, cross-training, extra training, rewarding top talent with special assignments. That's right, Jason. That's exactly it. People want to be challenged at work. They don't want to be sleeping on the job. So I'm going to talk about what employees want from you as their leader. And we're going to go into a little bit of detail on this. Specificity, support, empowerment, honesty, respect, consistency, and vulnerability. So when we look at leadership from we're going to look at leadership from the perspective of the employee. Why does somebody want to work for you? Because if somebody wants to work for you, word gets out. You're a great leader. Let's talk about this and I'll give some examples. In fact, and I'm not going to brag about me, but people contact me on LinkedIn and say, hey, I'd like to work for your company because I like what you do. And I've heard, it's a good place to work. And I don't have jobs for everybody. I wish I did, but if somebody reaches out to me, I usually give them an interview and talk to them. And then I file away their resume and I say, if something comes up, I might get back to you. But anyway, that's what you want to be. You want to be a company where people want to work. So employees want leaders to provide them with specific direction and to avoid corporate speak, to get to the point and be direct in telling them what to do and what specifically is expected from them. For example, can you make a presentation for a workshop for me on how to do an interview? And I could say that to one of my employees because that's a workshop we've got coming up. How do we do an interview? And if I just say that, the employee will come back, my employee will come back to me and say, okay, Katherine, what are the details? How long is the workshop? How many slides do you think you want? Do you want videos? Do you want it colorful? Do you want it in a certain format? What's the deadline? How many people will be coming? And then I respond by saying, I've got the lesson plan, so I know what I want. I've got it all set out. Here's the lesson plan. It's going to be a 2-hour training. I'm thinking maybe 50 slides. I would like color. I would like videos. So give as much detail as you can so you set the employee on the right track without them coming back to you for more information. And then you can also set a set point, right? Check in with me in a week so I can see how far you've gotten. Support, right? As I think it might have been Jason who said earlier, everybody wants to be supported, right? Nobody wants to be thrown under the bus. So employees want to know that you're going to support them and you've given them the tools to be successful. The customer might usually be right, but choose your words carefully so that you don't throw the employee under the bus in front of the customer. So for example, you wanted this red paint and you're working at a paint store. You wanted red paint. I'm sorry. So they've asked to speak to the manager and that's you. I'm sorry, it's orange. I apologize that this mistake has happened. Can we make it right for you? My associate Bill will correct this for you. Again, we apologize that this happened. Then you can talk to Bill later about, did you need extra training? Was it an accident? What happened? But don't point out errors in front of the customer. Empowerment. Somebody else mentioned that in the chat earlier too. Employees don't want to always ask you for permission. You can show empowerment by saying, I know you can do this. You've got this, but I'm here for you if you need me. Vulnerability makes a big difference to employees. Nobody wants to work for a leader who's perfect. Absolutely nobody. People want to know you're human too and that you've made mistakes in your past. Leaders who are vulnerable show understanding, compassion, and empathy. They trust themselves enough to throw their titles out the door and step into the shoes of their employees. Vulnerable leaders are well-grounded, relatable, and not afraid to do the right thing for the betterment of a healthier whole. So here's an example. Oh man, I've made that mistake too. Because I've made that mistake, I can explain to you it's not a good idea to do it that way because when I did it that way, this happened. And so it'd be nice if you could learn from my mistake so you don't have to repeat it. Therefore, I'm recommending you to try it this way. In my company, we do custom dismissals. And so I have a standard operating procedure for custom dismissals in any case. And I have a number of procedures that I go through. And sometimes a client will say to me, I don't want to do that. And I will say, okay, your risk in this is that if we don't do this, I suspect we may get a letter from a lawyer, which of course is the start of a lawsuit. And I don't mind responding to letters from lawyers, but I'd prefer not to if we don't have to. So 95% of the time, a client will say to us, okay, we'll do it your way. But every once in a while, a client will say, I don't want to do that. Okay, no problem. We'll do it your way, but here's the risk. So this happened to us last November. We terminated 3 people at a client. And when I was going through my steps, the client said, I don't want to give them reasons why I'm terminating them. And I said, okay, I'm going to tell you, this might have a bad outcome because, and again, you're not following my procedures. But anyway, we did get a letter from a lawyer and we responded to the letter and we were able to respond in such a way that ended the communications with the law firm. But because I've made mistakes and because other clients have, I can teach people and you can teach them how to not make those mistakes again by showing your vulnerability. Of course, honesty, a simple word, but not always easy to follow through with because there might be information you can't share with your employees. So leaders that are honest on the front end avoid creating unnecessary disruption and division in the workplace. So for example, there might be rumors in your workplace, and to settle those down, you can say things like, yes, our sales are down, or we lost a large contract and our goal is to get back to where we are and not have layoffs. That is our goal. We're working very hard toward that goal. And if we can't get to that goal, unfortunately, there may be layoffs. That's an honest answer, which shouldn't be as unnerving as waiting until you're at the point where you are laying off. So you're giving people some information, but not all of it. If we can't get back to being profitable, unfortunately, there might be layoffs, but we're working hard to get there. So respect. So what's the difference between recognition and respect? Recognition sounds like great job on that project. And respect sounds like I value you as an employee. I value your contributions to our company. I knew when I gave you that project to do, you would do a really solid job. Employees want leaders who respect and value their teamwork. So they're looking for deeper recognition than just straight out recognition. They're looking for you to show them respect. So in summary, it's these 7 traits that employees value in a leader. Specificity, specifically saying what you want, supporting them, empowerment, vulnerability, honesty, respect, and consistency. So of course, what else can you do? Well, working towards a culture of appreciation and gratitude. You can do that in many ways. You can have shout outs at meetings where employees give gratitude and appreciation to other employees. You can encourage that at meetings. Conducting stay interviews rather than an exit interview. Meet with employees and say, what's going right here? What's not going right here? Or do a survey. You can do an engagement survey, or we can do that for you too. And welcome feedback. So when I say welcome feedback, you're probably thinking, what does that mean? And that means that when you get feedback, you say, thank you for letting me know that. I'm sorry you feel that way. Is there anything else you can tell me? And I'll give you a true life example. My employee Mallory said to me about 6 months ago, Katherine, sometimes I feel like you're micromanaging me. And I said, oh, Mallory, I'm sorry you feel that way. Can we set a meeting to talk about that? And she said, yes. So first of all, I acknowledged her feelings. I'm sorry you feel that way. Secondly, I said, I want to find out more about this. And in that specific situation, what happened was I wanted to know what she was doing so that if a client called me, I could answer the question. And she said, well, doesn't it make sense that if a client calls you with a question about me, you refer it to me? And I said, that makes complete sense. I just need to let go, and I'm learning better how to let go. So, but welcoming feedback means that when you're given feedback, you thank the person who gave you the feedback and you ask for more information about it. And yes, sometimes feedback is not valid because somebody's complaining about something or giving you feedback that you feel is not valid. So then you can say, I appreciate you telling me that. Thank you very much. And you can still say, tell me more about how you feel that way. You don't have to absorb the feedback. You can respond to it however appropriate. Set realistic expectations about workloads and recognize what can slide if necessary. And if there's one thing I'm hearing from employees is that they feel overworked. Now, maybe that has to do with this pandemic, but a lot of employees are feeling very overworked. And I guess maybe it's due to a number of things. But if you keep piling things on your employee, think about priorities and recognize the amount of work you've asked for and set the priorities for that employee. Prioritize psychological safety, back to mental health, right? Employees who don't feel psychologically safe are more prone to error, less likely to take risks, participate in healthy conflict, or grow within their roles. If people are afraid to say something, that's not a good situation. So take the time to speak directly to your employees and check in with them to connect and prevent them from feeling invisible. Smaller companies, that's easier. Larger companies, I realize it's not. But don't take people for granted. Make it clear you're interested in their growth as individuals. And if people do leave you, I highly recommend exit interviews, because you'll gain a lot of information about why they've left your company. Your company might not be able to do that. That's often better done by a third party, because somebody will be more honest with somebody like my company than they'll be with you about why they're leaving. We have a 3-page, really in-depth exit interview that gathers a lot of valuable information about your company. So a little bit more about my company before we go to a question and answer period. So I have a team. We are based in southwestern Ontario. We work all over, through to Windsor, through to up to Tobermory, up to Burlington, Toronto. We're all over. We've been in business for 7 years. We're incorporated. I have a team of 6 professionals, or sorry, 5 we've got right now, to support our clients. We do human resources consulting, we do coaching and training. So the services that we offer are custom training, recruiting, policy development, employee handbook development, harassment investigations, performance management, dismissals. We don't do payroll, but we do everything else around employees. We do virtual or in-person services and training, employment contracts. We travel to locations as needed. We go on site to meet with clients and do whatever's needed. Our website, I'm going to show you shortly. Oh, and we have a variety of training offerings that we do: leadership, building culture, communications, assertiveness. We do training on legislation. And if you want, we have a monthly newsletter, which we send out around the 15th, which has, it's free information about legislation, lawsuits that have been settled, and general leadership information. So here, there are some references here if you'd like to get more information about what I spoke about this morning: the Great Resignation from McKinsey & Company, a little bit of Forbes magazine, and Healthline. My information is there, and I'm wondering if anybody has any questions. Thank you very much for listening, by the way. Quiet group.
Okay, Larry, I think you're on.
Okay. Thank you very much there, Catherine. I hope everybody found this as reminiscent and informative and as helpful as I found it. There's a lot of things that in our busy lifestyles as leaders within our organizations in this current climate that I'm sure we forgot. And the new information and whatnot hopefully will be helpful in assisting to make our teams stronger in what they are in this current environment. On behalf of the HMA and our Gears team, we thank you for taking time from your schedules to attend this event. If there's any further final questions, they can be taken now via text, or just unmute your mics and you're good to go. Thanks again for attending, and we hope to talk to everybody soon. Thank you.